Good evening and welcome back to another live episode of Red Tinted Glasses on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel. It is the Monday after the Saturday defeat at Tynecastle, where the Dons' third place hopes were maybe slightly dented, but maybe slightly unaffected, depending what viewpoint you have. I know which one I certainly felt at full time on Saturday, but Sid, we're doing this on Monday evening. Calum, have you calmed down slightly from full time on Saturday?
Not well. I've calmed down, but I'm now just terrified about what's going to happen on Wednesday. I'm really worried that everything's going to, go up in flames. With Hearts going to Rangers, how many times have they laid down for their big brothers? And now, when they need a result, could all be sorted. And I'm just worried. And St Mirren have looked pretty good lately. I'm just very, very scared, Glen.
Yeah, it's we've made it harder than we maybe needed to. Of course, a win on Saturday would have sealed third place and the potential of group stage football that comes with it. But it's not like Aberdeen to do things the easy way, of course. And it is that hope that kills you. But I mean, we could maybe take the result with a pinch of salt, given the fact that we did have to make changes to the team from previous, and of course missing three key players is never going to be easy, especially three players that have had such an influence on the team, with Duke missing out through injury, Ross McCrorie likewise as well, and Graham Shinnie serving the last of that 4-game frivolous appeal. That ban, that extra game, really coming back to bite us with, of course, the game that he missed at the weekend. But I think as well the weekend maybe just showed some of the lack of depth that we potentially have in the squad, but also I think for some of the players also showed something that we've been speaking about for the last few weeks, the fact that Barry Robson hasn't really utilised his bench, so some of the players were maybe missing out on match sharpness, match fitness. Jaden Richardson, prime example of that. You look at the fact that both goals came down his side, maybe Hearts using that as a weakness. Connor Barron came into the midfield. I didn't actually think Connor had an overly bad game. I know I was quite critical of the midfield in my full-time tweet, but for me that was mainly Yilba Ramadani, who I thought was really bad. But I mean, there were 3 forced changes, but we've got to play the cards that we've got to been dealt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Robson also said post-match that McDonald had to go off because he was dealing with a stomach bug, and Clarkson wasn't feeling fantastic either. And we lost Coulson just before the game too. So not ideal. I thought Watkins, in fairness, actually came in and did pretty well considering his lack of game time. On Barron, I didn't really notice him that much, which is, I suppose, kind of a good sign because he didn't do all that terrible, but also not a great sign because he didn't do all that much. But no, it wasn't. The problem was, we do struggle with a bit of depth. Those players that we do usually take off the bench have had to come in and start, and then once they're starting, there's very little left behind them. And I think we really suffered with that. But yeah, good news, I say that those 3 will likely be back for the game against St Mirren if Robson's comments post-match are to be believed, which you'd like to think they would be. And hopefully a fully fit Angus MacDonald, Clarkson, and Matty Pollock as well. By this point, I'd lost complete interest in the game, but didn't he have to go off too?
No, Matty Pollock played the full 90.
He had a little bit of treatment anyway. I know that much. I remember him walking about with a physio at some point.
Yeah, because he got absolutely KO'd on the halfway line. I think right on the 90th minute, or maybe 85th minute. But you're doing well to remember that because you were definitely enjoying yourself on Saturday. It's fair to say. And I wonder if Phil Mayer is tuning in because I hope he's enjoying the T-shirt that you're wearing. At least you had something to cheer about with your American netball team currently.
Oh, very good. Very good. The real sport. Yeah, I'm taking joy in Miami being good. I would like all 3 of my sports teams to be good at once for once. Throughout the regular season, Miami terrible, Aberdeen pretty terrible, Newcastle good. Now Newcastle good, Miami good, Aberdeen bad. So we'll get there eventually. Hopefully by the end of the season, I'll just be delighted with all 3.
Yeah, I did like your T-shirt on Saturday though. The Willie Miller T-shirt from Harv that the club have got from the Gothenburg Rangers. It was very nice. It inspired me to go and get this one from the club shop today when I was picking up tickets for Celtic away. So good marketing, Calum.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. A man of fashion. Who thought we'd do that? You can tell Caitlin I think you're a man of fashion. Kaiser, good to have you along on the lives as you normally are. Marley Watkins is always a willing worker. Of course, Marley Watkins normally the go-to first substitution for Barry Robson. Granted a start given the injuries that we had, and I actually thought Marley had a good game. He put himself about, maybe too much at times. Obviously picking up the booking with Cammy Devlin, but you couldn't fault his effort. I think it's fair to say.
No, I would agree. Willing worker. I thought he certainly put himself about quite well. Sometimes his link-up play with Miovski was pretty good, but then also at times it was clear it was a man that hadn't played that much football, and him coming in, although he did quite well in a game like that, is not ideal.
Yeah, and he was involved in quite a lot of the incidents, of course, in the first half, which we'll come on to. But I guess when we previewed the game with Graham last week, we discussed the fact that Aberdeen would have opportunities from set pieces, and Hearts would probably look to come out and take the game to Aberdeen. And I think it's fair to say that really followed the pattern, because Hearts did come out and try to lay siege to our goal, but I thought once again we looked very defensively resolute. And if it wasn't Keller Roast, there was Angus MacDonald, Connor Barron, Leighton Clarkson putting their bodies on the line to get in the way of shots. And really, we just looked to cause Hearts problems on the counter attack, which I thought we were doing to effect without really testing Xander Clark. I think though.
Yeah, I would agree. Having watched the highlights back, because that was required, and the analysis afterwards, there was a few times where we were on the break. At times, just the final ball wasn't quite there, or someone took a bad touch and that gave up the chance. So that obviously wasn't reflected in terms of shots in the match. But I thought we were okay. It was nervy at times, very nervy at times, but it sort of did pan out the way I expected. I'm just kind of annoyed that we didn't make more of set pieces, if I'm being honest, even though we did score. And right before we scored, got the corner, I said, here we go, Matty Pollock's scoring here. He did. I thought it was a genius. And obviously he missed a chance later on, which would have been very similar to the one he scored at Pittodrie against Hearts.
I think, I mean, I'm sure, was that not a 1-0 when he missed that header?
It was, yeah, it would have made it 2-0. It would have made it 2-0.
Yeah, but he did get on the end of, I think it was Leighton Clarkson's corner to head us into the lead. And I mean, I thought at that point, I was surprised, because we had been kind of maybe riding our luck a little bit defensively. But as Graham said, unfortunately for Hearts, they give up easy chances defensively from set pieces, and we took advantage of that well. But as well as going up, I felt maybe after about 5-10 minutes, when Hearts really did look a bit rocky and we had that chance through Matty Pollock, we didn't really kind of capitalise on being ahead in the game.
Not really. And I think, although Hearts had that rocky spell, that was, the way they played in that game, it was very free-flowing, bombing forward, and we just really struggled to get a grip of it at a lot of time, which you'd have liked to see us do once we'd got the goal in front. But obviously at Tynecastle, in a big game like that, they were obviously going to look and try and respond relatively quickly, which unfortunately they did. However, I would have liked to see us control it a little bit more. Maybe then that's where you're missing like a ball carrier, can you take the pressure off Graham Shinnie in the midfield, and I suppose there's a ball carrier on the other side, McCrorie.
Yeah, and I think as well the problem we had was Kevin Clancy must have got a new set of cards on Friday night, because he was quite happy to dish them out, especially to anybody in white. And Marley Watkins picks up a booking, and he can put himself about. Johnny Hayes picked up a really stupid booking. I think he really struggled on Saturday up against Oda. The booking he picked up really kind of took Johnny's threat out of the game, because he couldn't make a tackle at left back. Ramadani picked up a booking as well. So all those kind of physical players that we had in the midfield enforcers, such as Ramadani, that affected his performance a lot. But one of the key talking points in that first half. Of course, when we were 1-0 up, I'm sure it was. I could be wrong. You can tell how much we were paying attention despite being there. After all that faff we had in appeals, we had to get an away-in ticket. We both managed to be there. Marley Watkins going down under the challenge of Peter Haring. And despite, well, what seemed to be the fact the VAR did take a long look at it, Kevin Clancy wasn't encouraged to go to the monitor at all, and play on was waived. What was your initial reaction? Was it same as me at the time? It was Stonewall penalty?
Yeah, at the time, absolutely. Obviously, we were at the opposite end, and I didn't see sort of Marley's nudge to Haring in the first place, which kind of forced him to go down to then take out Watkins. I thought Stonewall penalty. Having seen it back, I can kind of understand why it wasn't a penalty. However, at the same time, you see those given quite regularly, don't you?
Well, put it this way, anywhere else on the pitch, it's a free kick to Aberdeen. It's, I just don't see how he wasn't even at least encouraged to go over and look at it, given what we've been seeing over the last few weeks, in fact, or since whenever the fuck this stupid system was brought in. But it's just another one of these things. Obviously, Barry Robson picking up on it in his post-match press conference, which is great because he's rattled a lot of people in Scottish football by his comments on VAR. Do you think Barry Robson, though, doing that by highlighting the issue with VAR is maybe slight deflection from the result overall?
Possibly. And in that case, it is probably clever because it kind of takes the heat off the players as well, which we've seen this season when criticism is there, perhaps don't always react fantastically. I think he does sort of deflect quite well. He knows what he's doing. Anyway, he's been around the game long enough to know. And certainly in this case, I think I can see why the penalty wasn't given. To sort of try and pin it on that kind of thing, I'm not really buying it all that much, although it seems to have worked, especially in the media, I guess, as well. Because the annoying thing is there is a little bit of Watkins on Haring first before the penalty, before he's taken out. I just don't know if it's enough necessarily for Haring first to not get the penalty, basically, and for the decision to go in Haring's favour.
Yeah, one of my Hearts friends texted me when I asked him his thoughts. He said, well, it was a foul to Hearts, if anything, which I still find baffling. I don't believe that. There's an incident later on in the second half that we'll come on to, which I'm still raging about as well. But as Adam G points out, since Barry started calling out VAR, we've received nothing from the refs. You could probably argue before Barry started doing that, but it was good to see you on Saturday, Adam. And Lewis picks up another good point, because I did wonder this when I saw that tweet from PLZ about Barry's criticism of VAR, is how long before Barry now receives a touchline ban for his criticism of the refereeing performances, or, well, VAR performance anyway.
Probably after something happens in the St Mirren game, we don't win, Hearts pick up something, and then going into the last game, go to Parkhead, we'll be without our manager. I wouldn't be surprised, would you, with the way things are going? Yeah. Although on sort of Robson deflecting, as you mentioned, a lot of people said it in the comments. I do agree that we were just shit, and it doesn't, I mean, the refereeing performance didn't help, but we were just terrible and didn't really deserve it in the end.
Yeah, no, I think, we were just so poor once we took the lead, and I think for me, I was saying after the game to Rab, we were going, he was like, I would have almost rather we lost that game 3-0 than lose it in the manner that we did, giving us that bit of hope and excitement of going 1-0 up and then just kind of shitting the bed. Maybe shitting the bed's a bit harsh, but really going down quite meekly in that second half especially.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we really didn't trouble Zander Clark all that much. And probably even for our goal, he could have done a lot better, coming out, getting nowhere near the cross for Pollock to get on the end of. We didn't react. And I know it's difficult away from home when there is only 600 away fallings. I was raging at the game because I was trying to sing and nobody else was joining in. That's why we don't get points from behind when we can go behind. That's the problem. That's what I've decided. And if I blame it on that, I'll maybe feel better about myself. But
or as Dill McCalloway wants me to take full responsibility for the defeat because on the way to the game I walked over 3 drains, and he said if we lose that I have to admit that it is entirely my fault.
So maybe it's that. But
maybe it's not Barry Robson and us just being terrible.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I'm sure Barry Robson, if he was listening, he would agree just to deflect even further. But no, I wasn't happy with the way he responded. Again, it is hard when you're going to that kind of game at their place when they've got a big crowd and we're missing 3 starters that, as even Barry Robson said, probably 3 of your best players. 3 of the 4, you can maybe argue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, the game was, really finely balanced, about 5 minutes going to half time, because Hearts it really felt piling on the pressure, and we were doing all we could in terms of putting bodies on the line. Keller Rose was making a couple of really good saves as well, as we've mentioned. But unfortunately, when you continue to ride your luck, it will eventually run out. But I mean, in the manner that it ran out, you can't take anything away from Josh Ginnelly for that equaliser. During the minutes of applause for the Heart supporter as well, there was fireworks going off as well. It was all very bizarre. And then Josh Ginnelly releases his own firework into the top corner. And that really just seemed to kind of not only shift the momentum of the game, but of both sets of supporters, I felt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was an absolute cracker, and they missed loads of chances throughout the game, and it's just typical that, well, not typical, I suppose that's basically the case where our luck runs out eventually, because then Josh Ginnelly pulls that one out, whereas 9 times out of 10 probably doesn't find the top corner, but the whip, the power, the direction straight into that top corner was unbelievable. I don't want to take anything away from the strike because it was phenomenal in finish, and we had an annoyingly great view of it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, almost didn't want to believe it was going into the top corner, but yeah, we had that view right as it kind of hit the side netting, and I was like, okay, well that's fine. I can go and get my pie now. So beat the rush at halftime, although not really much rush when you've only got 600 in the away end. But fine pie it was, actually, steak pie. Did you have one?
I did. It was like molten lava. It was good, but it was so hot.
Just got to keep up the pie news on this podcast because I know people tune in just especially for your reviews of the pie. But what was your thoughts then at halftime? 1-1 in a game that we really, I guess, a draw would have suited us. How did you feel at halftime? Because I can't help but I admit that I felt a little bit deflated purely because of the way the goal had gone in and it coming out with really absolutely nothing. Jaden Richardson got a bit of stick for his defending and it coming down his side, but I don't really think you can apportion a lot of blame to Jaden on that goal, because I think Barry Mackay makes a run down the wing, which kind of obviously takes Jaden's attention, and I don't know where the midfield is in terms of closing Josh Ginnelly, and Matty Pollock maybe a bit slow to get out to him, but you really can't take anything away from the strike at all.
Yeah, I mean, Devlin was up in support as well, which I think took Angus McDonald's attention too. I do agree, though. I deflated was the word I was going to use. Saw it at halftime, and I felt like, oh god. I was delighted that we got in at halftime just 1-1. If I'm honest, they kept coming at us, and I don't know. I just felt, if we hold on for a point here, it's an absolute miracle. And had I been offered that at the start of the game, I would have taken it, definitely. But I just felt, it's only going to be a matter of time before Hearts do eventually score. With the way they're going, the crowd now back up behind them, us struggling. I felt it was only going to go one way, sort of, at that stage, which is not a fantastic feeling.
No, and I kind of agree with that. I think, as you said, we're kind of hanging on a little bit. So I just thought, if we could get to halftime 1-0 up, their crowd would have been a bit despondent. The fact that they'd so many chances and failed to find the back of the net, when we'd have something to hold on to and continue to frustrate. I think someone said to me on the bus home that Hearts had 29 goal attempts within the first hour. Certainly felt like most of that was in the first half as well, but it just shows how under the cosh we were throughout that game, but maybe a bit too defensively minded from Aberdeen.
Possibly. I think we did struggle. We were penned in for quite a lot of it, with little to no escape route. I thought, actually, towards the end of the game, we switched Shayden Morris to the left-hand side, which meant he was up against Atkinson.
Mm.
And I remember seeing Robson specifically telling him, get right over on him, because the ball in behind is on. And he's not a fantastic defender. I felt that's something we could have maybe exploited a little bit more in behind as an outlet when we did get the chance to go. But they really penned us in, and we can't take anything away from them, if I'm honest. They absolutely deserved it, and we really struggled. And that's 2 games in a row now, and a lot of them are the same culprits for poor performances. I thought Hayes was very bad again. Ramadani too struggled. Clarkson struggled to control the game. I thought some of his defensive work was pretty good, but it wasn't fantastic.
That's interesting, because I thought Clarkson was our best player on Saturday by an absolute mile. I thought he was yeah, I mean, I think he was the only one in that midfield that looked interested. You know, you just look at that defensive block he made in the 90th minute. It was probably 94th minute. Yes, it was offside, but he was the only one bursting a gut to get back and clear the ball off the line. He was the only one looking to be inventive with the balls over the top. I know what you're meaning about the balls to Shayden Morris. It was just unfortunate that they weren't working. I just there was a few times that we tried to play that final pass, and it was the Hearts' head just got there first, or the big toe got there, or we weren't helped by a couple of dodgy decisions from Kevin Clancy. There was one I remember where Shayden Morris, before he got switched, was running down the wing, got tackled, out of play, Hearts throw in, and he was also running down the centre of the pitch, played the pass. Peter Haring was about 10 yards behind, already starting a slide tackle, catches Shayden Morris after Shayden Morris gets the pass away. Oh, heaven forbid we get a free kick, Kevin Clancy. Fuck me. Play on. It was just some really weird refereeing decisions that, yeah, we're just unfortunately having to get used to. But, you know, we can't sit here and blame the referee. We can't sit here and, you know, we've got to kind of take our own medicine, because we were our own worst enemy. And I think for me, the frustrating thing is the second goal as well is poor play from Aberdeen. Jaden Richardson caught high up the pitch, and Hearts exploit that. Ramadani, I think for me, has got to do a lot better to stop the cross in the first place. I think his attempt to even get out to block the cross, let alone stick a leg out to block it, is weak beyond belief. But heaven forbid he receives any criticism. And then Liam Scales, once again, like last weekend against Hibs, where Kevin Nisbet runs in front of him, fortunately I should say for us, last weekend, Kevin Nisbet puts the ball round the post. This weekend, a goal scorer in as good a form as Lawrence Shankland's not going to make that same mistake, and he capitalises and puts Hearts 2-1 in front. And yeah, that stat about us not being able to come from behind to claim any sort of points rolls on for another game.
Yeah, I think Pollock was the one that ended up playing Shankland onside as well. I really got my hopes up when it went to VAR too.
The longer it was going on as well.
I know, and I'm seeing it back. The annoying thing is he's literally just onside, which is infuriating. But the defensive line was absolutely shocking. Pollock was a lot deeper than anyone else playing him on. And yeah, it was a good finish. And even after that, you know, we really struggled to respond. It was probably a matter of, you know, how many more it was going to be. I remember Forrest stuck an absolutely shocking miss past the post, which he really should have hit the back of the net with. It wasn't good. It sort of felt like it was coming, though, from as soon as Janelli equalised.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. As soon as it went to 1-1, I think a lot of us had that. If we can somehow hold on and come away with a point, it'll be a great job. And that was the thing as well, is once it went to 2-1, unfortunately no faith in that squad to come back and grab an equaliser. But I think when you look at that game as well, you look at the substitutions that Hearts were making. They had a lot of depth in their squad. They were bringing on players that could change the game or continue to strengthen their position in the game. We were bringing on players that had a lack of minutes, lack of game time, and nobody really enough to influence that. But in the grand scheme of things, despite the doom and gloom that may be ingesting your ears or coming across on your TVs if you're watching us live tonight on Monday, we're ultimately still in third place, and ultimately the fight is still in our own hands. Mm-hmm. It's just, I think, for those of us that were there and to have such that opportunity to seal it or keep that position of strength, you can't help but feel disappointed in what we saw at the weekend. I think for me, that was why I was so angry come full time.
Mm-hmm. I was hoping we would do, what used to happen to Scrappy Doo in Scooby-Doo, where someone would hold his head, and then Hearts are just there trying to throw the punches but can't land any of them, and then we're still 5 points clear. That's what I was hoping would be the case, but unfortunately not. A couple other things that throughout the game, I really wanted Babbage to come on a little bit earlier. I felt that. I know he's a young kid, but at the same time we had nothing to lose, 2-1 down at that point. I thought we could have potentially taken off Richardson and just gone with Pollock, Scales, and McKenzie as the back three. On McKenzie, actually, what a hit from the Hearts half into our own net. Not sure why he did that, but do you remember seeing that?
No idea what you're talking about. I thought Jack McKenzie was absolutely terrible when he came on as well.
That's not my point, though. I can't believe you didn't notice it. I think Hearts we got a free kick or something like that, and for an inexplicable reason, Jack McKenzie nailed it from the Hearts half towards our own goal, and it just flew straight into the top corner without bouncing. I have no idea how you missed it. It was unbelievable.
No, I didn't.
My final thing on the game, penalty on Miovski. Thoughts?
Yeah, I was coming to that. I'll come to that in a minute, because I want to pick up this point from Andrew Southwick that I saw on Twitter about the midfield battle. It's kind of, I guess we've kind of covered it a little bit, but we always speak on this podcast about the midfield battle and how crucial it is in big games from an Aberdeen point of view. But I think it's fair to say we very much lost that midfield battle, and maybe that influence of Graham Shinnie that he brings to our midfield. As I said, with Ramadani being on a booking from quite early in the first half, maybe that restricted him slightly. And the fact that we were relying on Leighton Clarkson to just do about the job of 3 different players really hindered us. He goes on to say the fact that only Clarkson was winning challenges in there. And then at 1-1 we resorted to bypassing the midfield completely, kind of going back to the point that you were saying. It was just long diagonals or long balls over the top, which for the likes of Tony Sibic is bread and butter, although I'm maybe sure a few Hearts fans might disagree on. It says Robson wants to play with intensity, but at 1-1 when not playing well, we needed to take the sting out of the game, and Hearts did that very well in the last 15 minutes. And that for me was the most frustrating thing in that last 15-20 minutes. We just kind of lacked any control. There was a lot of hit and hope stuff, or hit and hopeless was maybe more apt. And yeah, I think Hearts were very wise to some of their play. A lot of players going down injured, killing the game, slowing it down, kind of like what we did against Rangers a few weeks back at Pittodrie, and we couldn't get a grip in the game in that last 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was clever, experienced from them. They know what it takes, I suppose, to get that third spot. And when you do get control of a game like that, that's the thing you need to do. And in the end, we ended up being Scrappy Doo, trying to play the long diagonals over at Shane and Morris, and we just couldn't land anything. It was a real shame.
I did not think we would be speaking about Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo on the podcast today, but here we go. Yes, so 2-1 down, we had very few chances, as you mentioned earlier, really failing to test Sander Clark to any significant. But the one kind of clear opportunity I do remember was when out of nothing, one of those balls over the top did work, and Bojan Miovski was tearing through. stay on your fucking feet.
Mm.
Hit it.
Mm.
What are you going down for? It's not a penalty. Like, I was beyond angry that he decided to. For me, it was a very good dive.
Yeah, I thought at the time. Watched it back. Sibic is kind of hands on him, and I think Miovski kind of fucks it up a little bit because instead of continuing to go towards goal, the ball kind of gets stuck at his feet, and then Sibic's making the contact, and then he goes down. But poor, and on another day, you probably see him take the shot on and hit the back of the net. It's just not what you expect from him, really.
I think for me, the thing that angered me most about it as well is for someone that's, up there's one of our top goal scorers, is that he didn't have the confidence in his own ability to take that on. He was looking for the contact, waiting for the contact, and taking the opportunity to go down. We're behind in the game. I could have understood if you wanted to do that when we're 2-3-0 up, but not when we're losing the game. You've just passed up an opportunity to get an attempt away on goal. And the thing is as well is get the attempt away on goal, and then if you're go down, give the referee a decision to make. Get the attempt away. We hadn't tested Xander Clark, as you said, didn't cover himself in glory for the opener. Miovski could have found the back of the net, forced a corner, forced a mistake from Xander Clark. It would have got the crowd the away end up. It just turned to a few folk appealing for a penalty and a few folk raging that he didn't stay on his feet and get the shot away. There was just, he gets a shot away and puts that behind for a corner. You get the big guys up, you get the crowd going, you get Hearts a bit nervous. They've already conceded from a set piece. I was really disappointed in Bojan not staying up for that.
Fair. I think he did struggle. He got the ball caught at his feet, and then at that point, when the contact came from Sibic, I think he thought, I'm not going to get this out of my feet in time. I'll just go down, which I think is basically what happened.
Yeah, but this isn't Eastern European football anymore. You don't get penalties for the slightest bit of contact.
That being said, other end of the pitch, if that was Angus MacDonald or Matty Pollock on Lawrence Shankland, do you tell me that's not a penalty?
Well, who knows? The way we don't sound like we're too much of conspiracy theories, I suppose, on this show. But ultimately, Calum, as I said, without being, maybe too doom and gloom, we've vented, we've got the therapy over. Ultimately, we are still in third place. The job of doing so is still in our hands. What's your confidence levels like of achieving third place after the weekend?
On the floor. When I left, when I left Tynecastle, I felt so defeated and deflated. And then someone just pointed out to me, it's like, well, if we win and Hearts don't, then that's it done. That's it done on Wednesday. I said, oh yeah, brilliant, that's good. Then I watched the highlights of St Mirren against Celtic, and they were good. They were good. Gareth Maid's a problem, and I am not confident. And I just feel like, as I said earlier in the show, Hearts have taken many a doing from Rangers. It would just be so typical that now that they need a result, you know what follows. You know how it goes, don't you?
Yeah, you know when Rangers are going to concede their first league penalty of the season.
Exactly. And probably play like Leon King and all sorts. And just because, it doesn't matter. But it is their last home game of the season at the same time. So they don't want, to upset the Bears before the end of the season and make them more upset about things, I suppose. So there's that too. But at the end of the day, we need to take care of our business, because even if Hearts win and we still win, it's still in our hands. And Celtic are giving away points like nobody's business at this rate.
Yeah, I know that. I guess the encouraging thing is that obviously it remains in our hands, but I don't want it to go down to the last day of the season and we need to go to Parkhead and get a result. They're giving away points, but it's their trophy day. But let's speak about the game then on Wednesday night. Let's get into that then, because as you said, you've watched the highlights from their 2-2 draw at Parkhead. Now, what's doing my head in, and I about chewed the ear off of one of the boys at work today when he goes, "It's all right, you'll beat St Mirren on Wednesday." I don't know what is going through people's heads that we've suddenly got a divine right to beat St Mirren at home. I mean, ultimately, we have to win the game. A draw is not good enough from an Aberdeen perspective on Wednesday night. But people have got to remember as well, St Mirren actually have something to play for coming up against here, because of course their European hopes remain alive after that point on Saturday, and coupled with Hibs losing 3-1 to Rangers, because a win for the Buddies would see them leapfrog Hibs, providing Hibs lose to Celtic, and put St Mirren in fifth position going into the final set of games, where, depending obviously on the Scottish Cup outcome, could see fifth claim European football. So it's not just going to be a game where the away team are coming up here with nothing to play for. And as you said from before we came live, watching that highlights, St Mirren caused Celtic no end of problems.
Curtis Main could have and arguably should have scored 5. Yeah, his goal, opening goal was absolutely aided by Joe Hart, which was very poor. But he did well to get the shot off in the first place of his second goal. Good header, I suppose. He hit the post, and he had 2 other chances that went narrowly over the bar. I don't know what's happened to him since leaving us, especially just this season, but he's turned into an absolute player. Obviously, his goal at Pittodrie last time as well was unbelievable in our defeat when McCrorie got sent off early. St Mirren are a good team. They could have battered Celtic. Celtic lucky to get a draw. Obviously, they are maybe on the beach a little bit waiting for that Scottish Cup final. They were very, very poor. But St Mirren are a very good side. Ryan Strain's deliveries, excellent. Ryan Strain also should have scored against Celtic, missed from about 6 yards out. I'm worried. I'm very much worried. Of course, we're going to have those 3 players back, apparently. So, that gives us a little bit of a boost. But again, it's going to be a big crowd. Sometimes that doesn't go well, Pittodrie. So I'm very, very nervous. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I suppose Ryan Strain, as you mentioned, he's got a good delivery, but he also knows how to hit a set piece, as we saw in their 2-2 draw against Hearts. Seem to be 2-2 draw specialists at the moment, do St Mirren. But also, as you said, another player that put in a worldie of a performance for the Buddies was Trevor Carson, a player that we're going to have to put the ball past to have any chance of winning. And St Mirren, I'm sure we're going to be hoping for him to be in inspired form again.
Absolutely. I mean, he saved the ball with his face at Parkhead as well, so his commitment is not to be questioned. He's been very, very good for them, and the fact Dundee United let him go is pretty funny, considering what the state they've ended up in. But we seem to be very, very good at taking chances when we don't have many of them lately. So we've got to hope that continues. But Trevor Carson is a more than capable goalkeeper. The defence looks very solid. Joe Shockley's got an absolute worldie of a throw-in on him too, which concerns me.
Hopefully Agent Joe's helping us out this week.
Absolutely. And not only amongst all of that, Alex Gogic was pretty good at Parkhead too. And him and Curtis May look very similar, which is also confusing. So let's hope that doesn't trouble us. But he seems to be getting forward in support of them as well, and not just this holding midfield jobber. They're a good side, and I am a little bit scared. But at the same time, if Duke's back, I was worried about when he went off with his injury. I thought if that's his hamstring gone, then we could be in serious danger here. But if he's back, and most importantly, fully fit, because in the games in the build-up to his injury, he wasn't at his best. So we need to rely on him, Ross McCrorie, too. And I'm sure Graham Shinnie will be back with a point to prove as well.
I think he'll be like a bee in the bonnet of the Aberdeen midfield, just buzzing about all over the place. Hopefully he just doesn't get himself sent off. That'd be great if you could avoid doing that, Graham. But I think, we're certainly looking at a good crowd, as you said. I was in the ticket office this afternoon picking up tickets for the weekend, and there seemed to be a steady stream of people coming in, either collecting tickets for Wednesday night, buying tickets for Saturday as well. I mean, as Kaiser pointed out in the comments, only 700 tickets we've got for Saturday's game at Parkhead, which of course we'll be previewing live on Thursday night So you've got 2 for the price of 1 this week on live podcasts on the Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel. So if you are watching here for the first time, hit that subscribe button, chuck the notifications on so you get notified when we are back on Thursday. And if you're enjoying this video as well, leave us a like. But as you said, Calum, pressure maybe from a big home support, an expectant home support, because there is that expectation that we should be beating the St Mirren side. A lot is also being made. We don't want to sound too much like we're wearing tinfoil hats, but the fact that former St Mirren player Don Robertson is the man in charge of the game this weekend, midweek. Much thoughts on that?
My main concern is just that he's useless, but a lot of them are. But still, I'm not certain how that's allowed. It seems, imagine like Steve Tosh was just refereeing an Aberdeen game or something like that. That would be insane, wouldn't it?
Steve Tosh, the man who doesn't see the point in having walls at free kicks. That would be hilarious to see him refereeing a game. Good to see that Al Mitchell has a bit of confidence. We're going to have to be on top form on Wednesday, but I have absolute faith in us getting the job done on Wednesday. Come on, you Reds. Of course, Calum, you alluded to the fact that Barry Robson mentioned in his post-match press conference to Red TV that Duke McCrorie and Graham Shinnie are all set to return, whether that was just a wee nugget thrown in there to appease anybody like myself who was absolutely raging sitting on the bus trying to get out of Edinburgh. But if true, a huge boost to our chances this midweek.
I'm pinning my hopes on that exactly. If I'd say we need at least 2 of them back because we've not looked the same without them. You know the type of things Duke can do, especially even in a game we're holding on to. You know that he can come up with a bit of magic every now and then, and I'm absolutely pinning my hopes on that because it's the same team that started at Tynecastle with the sort of way St Mirren have been playing. I would be worried.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest one that I want to see back is probably Ross McCrorie for that right back slot, because Kennedy's clearly not fancied in there under Barry Robson because we didn't see him at the weekend. But yeah, Jaden again showed his defensive frailties. Maybe not going to be exposed as much at home, but in a game that carries so much pressure as it does this weekend, we really do need to have our strongest 11 out. You can tell I'm not used to having midweek games. I keep calling it the weekend game. But I do think the return of Graham Shinnie into that midfield is just hugely important because as well, if decisions aren't going our way, that Graham is going to be buzzing around nipping Don Robertson's ear because there was a few times, I think Stu said to me, he was like, Shinnie needs to be having a word with the ref, getting in his ear saying, look, these decisions aren't, working in our favor. They aren't right. Do something basically. And it's, could Graham Shinnie be a key in that midfield and having that influence, not only on our team, but also maybe manipulating the man in the middle?
Don't use manipulating. He will end up with another suspension. Absolutely. I think we do miss that. For all John, he's experienced things like that. I don't think he is, a sort of natural captain. Graham Shinnie, as well as, maybe he's gone against him recently. He does usually, run the line of midfield enforcer whilst getting away with it pretty well, which could absolutely be vital in a tough St Mirren midfield. St Mirren will be without Alex Grieve, however. I know he's a forward, but just to let you know, he will be out without him because he's out until the end of the season, which is good. But after he went out of the team, Keanu Bacchus came back in, so it's still not fantastic. But it'll be a very, very interesting one and not one I'm looking forward to. But I'm going to try and be a bit more positive. And you've been saying weekends when it's midweek, you're going to have to get used to it for next season when we're in the Europa League group stages. All right.
Oh, very good. Jesus Christ, what has got into you the last 2 minutes? If McCrorie, Duke are not 100% fit, say they're, let's say hypothetically 60% fit, are you starting them or are you not risking 1 or 2 of them in this scenario?
It's tough because you could end up going into the game against Celtic needing to pick up something. In that case, you would have wanted to have them rested and closer to that 100%. Right now, you'd probably argue not everyone's 100% anyway, but at this stage of the season, everyone's carrying some sort of little niggle or something's not right, something's a bit tight. So I think I would risk them and put it all on the line in this game. Duke, sometimes when he is kind of a little bit of a knock, is sort of anonymous, but just based on that maverick nature of him, I would have him in the team. And I think the problem with Ross McCrorie being out is the alternatives are so poor. I'd honestly probably be more likely to not play Duke over McCrorie, as I say, because Watkins came in and he did a decent job. But at the same time, after him not playing for ages and then playing whatever he played, 70 minutes, let's say, he's probably fucked by now as well.
Yeah, I think I would kind of agree on that. We've got to risk McCrorie over Duke, especially, as you say, if we do need to go into that last game of the season needing something. And at least if, Duke has 20, 30 minutes in him, you could bring him on as an impact sub if, the game's 0-0 at that point, for say, because the crowd would 100% be lifted by his introduction rather than him, playing an hour and going off and thinking, oh God, here comes Marley Watkins. We're, needing a goal. Nothing against Marley Watkins. It's just usually the first go-to sub. That's all, in case Sean Neville gets offended, because I know how much he loves him. But yeah, that's just one of them decisions that Barry Robson is got, and will ultimately be judged by those in attendance and us on the live on Thursday by what he goes ahead and does. But I think as well what the weekend did show was just how limited this current squad is, and again re-emphasises the job that is on hand, for the summer. And I think whether it's the Europa League group stages, as you're so confidently predicted, Conference League, or hopefully one or the other, from finishing third, we do need better strength and depth, because it's quite seriously lacking right now.
Absolutely, we do. And that job has potentially been made more difficult with Mr. Mowbray going down south and basically to France. Couldn't get further away if he tried, to Southampton.
Yes, well teed up. I teed it up and you smashed out of the park. It's almost like we worked on that link as well, but we definitely didn't, because when you messaged me earlier in the week to say Mowbray was away, I thought you meant Tony Mowbray had left Sunderland, not Darren Mowbray leaving Aberdeen. So you can tell how on the ball I was about that.
I know. It would be really harsh on Tony Mowbray if he got sacked, considering how well he did with such a young squad, but also get it up them for not getting promoted. But you'd like to think with Darren Mowbray leaving, that we are going to be, there's a contingency plan in place. And also, I just hope he's going to leave his database with identified players for the short list left up here and not take Duka Miovski down south with him as well.
Yeah, of course, not like Bojan Miovski was previously linked with Southampton a couple of months ago. Just saying. But, of course, Aberdeen, who widely comment on the fact that we work a couple of transfer windows in advance, I think it would be safe to say that we should be okay for this summer in terms of targets identified, and just hopefully that we can get those deals over the line quickly enough, but possibly early enough so that the players are in and can gel in enough time for the start of that European adventure that we all hope that it still comes to fruition, of course. I think the way that the results went at the weekend, the likelihood of us finishing anywhere below fourth is pretty hard going, with the fact that Hibs lost. So you would like to think we've got a reasonable chance of progressing in Europe. Obviously, we want to get that third place, that guaranteed 5 million that comes with it. But also the guaranteed group stage football as well would be a huge financial boost, because you're guaranteed big crowds for that. But one player that we seem to have signed already, although nobody wants to admit it, well, neither club anyway, because I think, Calum, you said the players come out and all but admitted it today, is Nicky Devlin. And that, after the weekend, further highlights some good recruitment, because it's definitely the one area that needed addressed ASAP.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just said a massive moment to go. Hopefully we can get the, we're working a few windows in advance and getting business over the line quickly. So quick that neither sets of the club are willing to announce it. Nobody's got any clue what's going on. Everyone's seen the photo by now. Nicky Devlin did an interview and basically said why he's choosing Aberdeen, and still nothing official. So I don't know what the hold up is at this point, but I'm quite happy with Nicky Devlin coming in. If I'm honest, it's free, it's shrewd. Not every player is going to be a Duke, and I think a solid addition. And also, with the money that we're apparently going to get from McKenna now, $750,000 for Nottingham Forest staying in the league. Didn't even know that was an instalment until about 2 days ago. So with that potentially McCrorie money and the hopefully European money, we could be in a nice position. We could be in a nice position with Cormac coins.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure the Cormac coins have been topped up very nicely with that McKenna deal. But as Skoxer says on Nicky Devlin, captain, grafter, fighter, natural in that position. And I think for us, that is the main thing, to have somebody in that natural position. But also, obviously, because it's not been announced yet, we don't know how long the deal is. I would assume maybe a couple of years. But it could be an ideal, player for Jaden Richardson to learn under a player that knows the league, because Jaden is on a long contract here and probably going to be the backup to Nicky Devlin next season, so someone that he can definitely learn off of. And I know the Talk Livy boys are very disappointed to see that picture being circulated and the departure of the player, of course, that they sponsor at the moment. So maybe a transfership, a sponsorship from Talk Livy to RTG, who knows. A few of you in the comments here saying it's 2 years. So I think they'd be pretty happy with that on that length of time, and good proactive recruitment there early on. We'll just wait for the official announcement on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think 2 years is about right, given his age. Right now, he's probably in his peak at 29. In a couple of years' time, perhaps not. But that's 2 years potentially. Jaden Richardson will still be here. You'd think if he doesn't go back down south, that's 2 years he could be his understudy, learn from him. And by that point, he's still only going to be 23, 24, and maybe then he'll be ready for stuff. As a backup, with Devlin, who's maybe a bit more solid defensively, and you've got the attacking, more athletic option of Jaden Richardson as well. Not a bad spot to be in.
Yeah, and as we said, with the potential of more games next season with Europe, domestic cup competitions as well, you do need that option. So, potentially utilize Jaden Richards, those sort of things. Of course, that's assuming that Jaden is here next season as well. But always good to get some transfer talk on the show. We're coming up to that time where there's going to be rumours galore, leaks galore, I'm sure. I mean, Considine and his agent got a lot of slack for leaking the deal. I wonder who's getting the blame for leaking that photo, because I'm sure the club will not be happy.
It's absolutely mental that it's made its way out, because surely only like one person has that photo, so it's not hard to pin who it would be. But insane. But it made me feel a little bit better, and we've had a bit more of a positive note to end this podcast on as well. But I am very excited. I always get super excited around transfer windows because I just love how it all works, and getting excited about a player like Gambly, not who's leaving, what's going on. It's just fun, and we don't lose, so it's good.
Yeah, will he be a Duke? Will he be a Richardson? Who knows? We can't wait to find out. And then, of course, as well, once the season finishes at the weekend, we'll have the fixtures to look forward to, European draws to look forward to, Sky Scanner to get loaded up. It's an exciting time.
It absolutely is. Sorry, you buffered a little bit there. Exciting time, but I have fucked it up by booking a holiday. So I will be in Hungary and Croatia if we are in the Europa League playoffs or even the Conference League playoffs, because I booked it when we were like 7th in the league. So we could draw a team from one of those countries. That would be perfect. Yeah,
I hope Caitlin knows that would be part of the holiday itinerary.
I have mentioned it. I don't think she's happy about it, though.
Needs must. But yes, as I said, a slightly more positive note to end the podcast on. Maybe a bit of doom and gloom in the early stages, but we needed to vent. We needed to get our emotion out, and it's all full steam ahead to Wednesday night, where a near packed Pittodrie, I'm sure. We'll be fully behind Robson and the boys to hopefully continue that push for third place.
Absolutely. We oh God. No, now I'm getting scared again. Let's stop. Let's stop before I work myself into a shoot.
Okay, then I'll end it here. Thanks very much for those that tuned in tonight on the Red Tinted Glasses live on YouTube, and those that are catching up on audio. As we said, we will be back on Thursday evening, probably 7:30. If you follow us on Twitter at @RTG_podcast, we'll put an announcement up there. But as we said as well, if you do subscribe to the channel, you'll be able to get a notification when we are live. So thanks very much for tuning in. Until next time, come on, you Reds!